Hey folks, thought I'd show how I process my beeswax. What I have here is actually a Bendel brewer's pot. It's 20 gallon. Let's see if I can get down here. See, it's got basically just a turkey burner, one of those large cast iron burners underneath. And what I've done, slide the lid. I packed that, you can see over here, still some cappings. We're getting close to being done. When I packed this thing, it was up to about here, which is about the 18 gallon mark. You get back, I've steamed up my lens. So, anyway, what I did was I filled this with, I don't know, 15 to 18 gallons of comb. This would be the cappings left over from my uncapping tank. And then I added 2+ gallons, probably about 3 gallons of water. Actually, it was some honey water with some honey that was also in the bottom of my tank. I try to salvage everything. So the reason I added the honey, as soon as I get this thing up to temp, I'm going to let it cool down, and the water that's coming off of this, I'm going to save and use it to start a batch of mead. So anyway, I'm going to turn off this thing right now. The only thing I have left to do is put a floater in there to help me remove the wax cake. Alright, it is time for our plug. This is just an aid to help me get that ball of wax. You see, that looks really nasty down there, but that's what you want, is you want all that garbage to come out of there and settle. So this is our little poplar plug. We're going to set down here carefully. It's going to be hot. And it fails because it's too top heavy. It's problematic. Okay, let's try this again. This time I've added 4 screws, just to show that I screw up just like everybody else. And it looks like we now have too much weight. And we'll get there. Okay, third time's the charm. I got 2 screws, and I drastically reduced the top of the unit. So, and she's floating sideways. Got 4 screws. I just can't win. Okay, that's as good as I can get it. That is, I'm going to have to redesign that little thing, but I've got it floating almost upright. And what I'll use is just this simple hook. Once it cools off, I can thread that into that center hole, and it will be easy to remove. But getting that thing balanced was a booger bear. Anyway, okay, we've got our plug. It leveled off pretty good, and I'm just using a good old-fashioned hanger thing as a handle. I want to make sure it's got enough so it doesn't break off and fall on me. Move my lid out of the way, let that drain. Sorry about trying to do this and hold the camera. It's always a challenge. Alright. I'm going to go set this over here on the concrete for a second. I'm going to put it on edge so you guys can see what actually floats to the top. So there's what you typically have. As you have a core of wax, you have some stuff that floats on the top, but you always have this line of stuff that floats on the bottom, right between the wax and the water line. So what I've got there left is a mead start, but that's another video. We'll get this thing outside and I'll show you guys how to clean it and get this prepped for stage 2. Alright, you can clean this sloth off with pretty much anything. I like using just about a 1-inch chisel, and my bees will probably come over here and try and get them a little bit of a snack. But what you're looking for is just cut off all that till you get a nice line. It doesn't take long at all to get through. There's my plug. Made it all the way to the bottom. And to get that plug out, I'll just break this wheel in half and it'll break on that fault line, no problem. But see where I'm pulling up white? That's what we want to do. This is basically the first filtering. If you tried to do this all at once, which you could do, but that's an awful lot of garbage to go in your filter. Anyway, I'll show you final stage next. Hey folks, I'm going to show you phase 2 of getting your wax filtered. So I've got this on a very, very, very low heat. Let me see if I can grab the tripod. I'll show you what I've got this thing. Right now I've got it started without any fluid or wax or anything, because I'm trying to get rid of some of the moisture. You can see it kind of, that's not smoke, that's actually some water vapor. So down here you can see what just a minimal flame I've going, which is just to warm the kettle. And I'll turn it up, but I'll still keep it low, because you remember, beeswax has a flash point of about 400 degrees. So that's pretty safe to work with as long as you don't get crazy with your heat. So our cake that I pulled out is now, this is the side view. I've broken it off pulled it out of there. So this was the top and this was the bottom layer. And you could scrape more of this. The problem is it doesn't ever wind up even. Like you wind up with high spots here and low spots there. So you just gotta scrape a little bit of the gunk, which is what I did once I started sitting solid wax. And you want to put these blocks crummy side, I'll call it crummy side, the garbage side up, so the wax will melt and not this debris, which is that's larva casings, dead bees, who knows what all is in that mix, along with some wax. And got a piece of comb. Just don't want anything to go to waste. So just throw that in there on a super low heat for a few minutes. You can turn it up after it starts melting. You just don't want any high temperatures without any way for it to transfer the heat to the kettle. So what I'm using is a 20-gallon brewer's kettle. I did this before with a turkey fryer in a 5-gallon pot. This is much safer, obviously, because we're going to be pouring out of the bottom of this molten wax. So handling a big a big container of wax, even I would process it maybe down to a gallon or a gallon and a half, which is where this kind of two-step process came from. I would not recommend, trying to carry that stuff and pour it. It's just, wax is real dangerous. Not so much as a fire hazard if you keep your temperature under control, but as a burn hazard. If you splash it on you, the wax will just stick right to your skin and give you a nice burn. So anyway, now we've got this kind of started. I'm gonna take I'll take our flame and I'll show you how high we're going to run it up to for this. And of course we're going to close the lid because it'll melt faster. Bear with me, here we go. So, move my kettle out of the way. So, she's just barely burning. We're going to... Now I'll show you what max is. So that's about max, and it throws heat all the way down to the outside edges. What we want to do is we want to come about a medium heat. Should be a good safe. I'm actually doing this inside my honey house, so I also don't want this thing overheating and creating any smoke. Like I said, beeswax with a 400-degree flash point, it smokes. It starts smoking when it hits about 200 degrees. So we want to keep the kettle under 200. Anyway, I'll show you our filtering setup here in a minute. Alright folks, looks like we're pretty much melted. We still had a little bit of moisture, which is pretty much common in our wax chunks. That black stuff always holds some moisture. And if I put I'll show you my cheaters. Put my cheaters over here. You can see they're fogging up a little bit. There's moisture bleeding off of there, but no smoke, so that's a good thing. Anyway, so over here we've got our setup. To give you guys the best point of view. So what I'm using for a strainer, I'm using just a simple standard kitchen strainer. For a fine strainer, I'm using a Dixie H700, which is like a Swiffer sheet. You could actually use a Swiffer sheet. These tend to allow the wax to flow through while at the same time catching all the debris. So you want something disposable. I've used an old cotton shirt. Those work great. Just whatever you have on hand. You just want something that fills up your basket here and has room, because when you get that wax on there, it's going to pull it down. So you want to make sure you got a big enough sheet. So anyway. If I can't get this point a little more where you can see what's going on underneath. You see it's filling up fast. Well, that'll be good for a cake.
And there you can see the debris we filtered out of there. So anyway, we'll set this over to our next container. All we gotta do is sit and let that cool. And this is what it'll come out looking like when it's done. Nice and clean. Anyway, so that's my two-step process for filtering wax. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please like and subscribe.